Hey folks, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
And today we're going to dive into Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, The Blood War, Part 1.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us.
Alright, Tome of Foes, Mordenkainen's, Chapter 1.
Depending on how you want to pronounce it.
That's true. The war rages on. the great debate of the ages. So we have Chapter 1. We're going to talk about the Blood War. And it's actually so big, we're going to break it in half. Because we have devils, we have demons. And you know what? I think they both kind of deserve their own little video. Which I doubt it's actually going to be a little video at all.
There's a lot of awesome content here. Reading through... there is just so much stuff that you could take, small snippets and be like, this is an adventure, or this is an entire campaign arc, or literally, this is my main villain for my entire campaign. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to do it. It's just chock full of awesome information.
So with the Blood War, we start with the Great Dance, right? And basically, the Great Dance is about the Blood War and how it's always shifting and changing. One side never really gains the upper hand on the other, and oddly enough, there's only one place for them to really fight. Skirmishes break out through the multiverse, but for the most part, demons are constantly invading hell via the River of Styx, and on those banks is where most of the fighting takes place.
And they pay probably ridiculous sums to the Yugoloths to be able to cross that river, because just being in the River Styx is just bad news, even for the denizens of the lower planes.
Yeah, drinking or being immersed in the River Styx causes you to lose memories. Eventually, you could lose basically everything, become an empty vessel. Demons and devils can resist it longer than mortals, but it's still hazardous to them too. They do not want to be there.
So with this great dance that goes back and forth, there's sometimes a victory will be had, but it's always going to be short-lived, because there's this just ebb and flow, your typical sine curve, where sometimes the demons get a victory, but the devils have had plans for it and they push through. Sometimes the devils win out, but the sheer chaos of the demonic forces winds up having them to have to retreat. So it stays at this locked stalemate, which is these occasional little drifts.
Yeah, the abyss has numbers, but hell has organization and tactics, strategy, and discipline. So it's a very big deal for them. So next we kind of have like mortals and minions as the next section, where under the Blood War, where the devils cultivate cults for a reason, very specifically, where what they're doing is they're creating these souls that are going to eventually come to hell and fill their ranks.
So when they've fully pledged themselves to the devil, or the devils, I should say, what happens is when that mortal expires, rather than going on to wherever else they might go, they go to the hells and become, most of the time, just a simple lemure, and they enter into service to whatever devil that they've placed a pledge to. Every so often there's a one that there's not a specific pledge, so they're a leftover, and we can get more into those as we get into the specifics later.
Now powerful mortals that with their souls go to hell, they can sometimes actually come back as a lesser devil, like an imp or something, which is a step above. Although, and the lemures have a very specific role they play in the Blood War. They are expendable fodder for pretty good reasons. Like, one is the fact that they're not very useful, and the other is they actually can't be killed. It's very hard to destroy a lemure. It's actually harder to destroy a lemure in hell than it is other denizens, more powerful creatures.
They need like specific radiant energy to have them be destroyed. And they actually go into, there's a little sidebar that talks about the legions of the damned, and the lemures fall into the Dreg legions. And some of their banners are just hysterical. So they've got bugs in the system, momentary lapse of progress, casualties imminent, not worth the effort, or my favorite, last in line for healing.
Yeah, and that's the Legion of Damn, and that's the Dreg Regiment, like you said, the Legion. And there's two others. There's the Shield Legions and Sword Legions, and they both have names, company names that when you translate them, they're kind of funny. You got Moment of Silence, Welcome to the Hells, Pleased to Meet You, Front Toward Enemy, End of the Line. So they're very, descriptive, and this is what we do.
The Shield Legions are your more, as you would guess, they're the defensive, whereas the Swords, they're the ones that are designed to be your aggressors, and there you have things that are translated to Flawless Execution, Damned Good, The Hanging Blade, Inevitable Outcome, and A Taste for Carnage. So, well, I think this is, well put forward as just a small little sidebar that talks about these guys and just these things. If you've got somebody that, can speak these languages or read it, it's just comical.
Now, going back to both devils and demons, one of the places where you're going to get a lot of adventure hooks is that both sides are always kind of looking for the advantage or looking for the edge, whether it's a new powerful spell that's been unheard of, whether it's an artifact, whether it's taking something. So a lot of times in order to break the stalemate, they have to look elsewhere, other than hell or the abyss. So they look a lot of times to the cosmos and specifically to the mortal plane. So, adventurers could be duped into serving one side or the other. They could, maybe they are immoral and they don't really care one way or the other, and they're willing to be hired by demons and devils. So, you could actually use the blood war and those that are participating in it as your quest giver. So that would be one way to kind of bake it into your game. Now, before we go any further, we do want to say right now we do have a contest going on to get Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. We got 3 special copies, 2 regular copies. We did a video where we flipped through and just give a quick look at it. Well, if you check out the video, you're going to find the rules to the contest and how you can get your copy.
So we'll put a link to that in the description below that you can jump right to that and see how that works.
If you don't want to take your chances with the contest, there will be a link to Amazon to just pick up your copy right there.
So we get into the devilish point of view, well, up to this point, we're only on page 7. So like I said, there's lots of great stuff that's in here. And this just gives you their intelligent, their tactical side of how this all works.
Also, it gives their point of view literally too, in a sense that the devils actually consider themselves like heroes of the multiverse, right? They're like, we are the ones that literally keep the demons at bay. If it wasn't for us, they would break through and they would overrun the multiverse.
This is a section that I thought was just too good not to read. It says, talk to one for a little longer, and it will inform you that you're only alive because of the devil's heroic efforts. If there was truly justice in the world, it would tell you the multiverse would bend its knee to the 9 hells in thanks for the devil's role in preserving the cosmos.
Now, oddly enough, too, when you think of demons, you think of chaos and carnage and just thoughtless rage. But it's not so. There's actually a reason why they're trying to conquer the universe by going through hell. There's the practical reason of this is actually their only easy route, right? Mm-hmm. But then it speaks even further to the fact that they even the demons know if they were to go outside of hell and attack anywhere else, the devils then would gain allies in this war against them, and they could be eradicated. But by fighting just the devils alone, nobody gives a rat's ass about those guys. So they know that they have carte blanche to do it. There's very few that actually care which side wins or pays that much attention to it or gets directly involved. That being said, there are a few, and that's why this is Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, because he actually assembled a group of powerful beings that do care about this, and they will do crazy stuff seemingly to everyone else, but their motives are to keep the blood war going, because they know if this machine stops, those forces are going to be turned towards the rest of the multiverse. So they know that it has to keep going on. No, it has to stay a stalemate. No one can win the blood war.
So Mordenkainen's is all about the balance, and you can become a part of this organization, and this is yet another avenue to have as again, simple adventure, campaign arc, or your full-fledged campaign, where you might be against this city today and then trying to save it tomorrow. You could be doing the same thing across the entire prime, as here you do something good, here you do something evil, just to try and keep everything at that status quo, because the demons, they want to rule over the entire multiverse and have it be their own playground, whereas the devils that think that they can take everything over and have this be an established order and their own utopia, which there might be some good, but I'm guessing since they're evil, it's not going to be the good you're looking for.
Yeah, so we've done videos before about using a true neutral opponent, and this is kind of exactly the thing we've spoken to. So if you look at this, it's just one little section of the balance. You can actually take that and turn that into adventures using enemies or antagonists against your party that aren't necessarily evil, but what they're doing, a good person would not be on board for.
Right.
So with that, now we're going to dive actually into hell, formerly known as Bader. Well, it was hell, then it was Bader, then it was hell again. I don't know. It gets confusing. But the 80s satanic panic was at the root of that, I believe. So one of the first things we get this nifty table, layers and rulers of the 9 hells. So, it lists each layer, the layer name, and the ruler.
So you got Avernus, which is ruled by Zariel. You've got Dis and Dispater, Minaris and Mammon, Phlegethos, which has actually got 2 rulers, Belial and Fiernal. Stygia is Levestus. You got Mabulj, which is Glacia. Maladomini, which is Beelzebub. Cania, which is Mephistopheles. And, of course, Nessus, and that's Asmodeus.
So, we start right off with the first, the bottom layer, the 9th, and that's Asmodeus.
And Asmodeus is, the end-all, be-all of devils. He has a plan for everything. This is if you want to take Batman to an evil and extreme, I think this is where this guy's going to fall in. And he's got that thing set up. Regardless of what's going to happen, he's got a plan for it. He has thwarted every single incursion into his domain by devils who are trying to usurp his power, and he's like, nope, not going to happen. I'm all powerful. Just back off.
The quote on page 9 from Asmodeus is worthy of reading. I literally sit beneath 8 tiers of scheming, ambitious entities that represent primal law suffused with evil. The path from this realm leads to an infinite pit of chaos and evil.
Now, tell me again how you and your ilk are the victims of this eternal struggle.
Asmodeus addresses the celestial jury from the trial of Asmodeus, which actually that part was like one of the coolest parts under the Asmodeus entry, maybe even against the devil entry. Like the angels and celestials, they came up with all these lists of crimes and things that Asmodeus was guilty of. He actually submitted himself to their trial, but said, but in order to make this a fair trial, we need a lawful being to arbitrate over it. And suggested Primus from Mechanus do such, and they did. And not only did he walk away not incarcerated, but he walked away with a sweet artifact in addition to that.
So, the angels, were like, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do it right. And they put forth all the evidence. All of it. And Primus was so bored by the monotony of just this litany of testimony, thank you, over and over again. He eventually that's it, that's enough, I don't want to hear anymore. And the angels actually turned to infighting and bickering, and that made Primus shut it all down. So Asmodeus was so clever that he saw this and this is how things are gonna flow out, and I'll be good, or I'll be out, I'll be cleared. So Primus wound up gave him a artifact rod that we only know part of its power, but in that is a devil is bound to the contracts that they sign.
Well, it's the red ruby rod of Asmodeus. And, hey, in some of us from preview editions, we could just read the stats.
Well,
So,
but that's previous editions.
Asmodeus we don't get stats for anymore, and he's like a deific being.
Right. And I'm all about not having stats for someone of that level.
So then that brings us to the first level of Hell, I believe, which is ruled by Zerial. Keep wasting my time with your pointless words and die, or join my warband and live. Choose swiftly, I have a plane to conquer. Zerial addressing emissaries from Dis.
So, she's got the uppermost layer, and Dis is the second layer. So, like, technically they're, she's lower on the totem pole. It's always weird trying to adjust them differently. But, she's like, nope, I don't care about words. I'm going to fight stuff. And when you get into reading them, Zariel is kind of a new recruit into the Hells.
Well, yeah, because she was actually one of the archangels that were placed there to kind of watch the blood war and not participate, but just observe. And she got tired of observing and said, we need to do something. We could just wipe them all out. And so, so she tried to, and she tried to run a coup on the Hells, failed, but, in doing so, Asmodeus said, hey, we got a place for you. You want to fight? Fight. And then now she's an archdevil.
So, she replaced Bell, who Bell is now her advisor. Bell, since, this is in Avernus, the first layer where all of the fighting typically happens, Bell was very a defensive, mindset. He was all about the strategy of, wear him down, wear him down, wear him down, let them suffer the casualties, not us. And Zariel is just the complete opposite. She's about the carnage. She's about the fighting. Let's go out there and do this fight right. And there's now been this massive flux. So, like, you could really play up that angle if you ever, you had PCs go through here. They could be approached by Bell. They could be approached by Zariel. They could be approached by both. Like, you can have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, we have subheadings like a fighting general, the warrior general, Lady of Ruin. And she's not, of all the devils, she's the least likely to bother with politics, and politicking is kind of a lot what devils do. We also get this nice sidebar about Tiamat waits and watches. Tiamat is also on the first level. In previous editions, she used to be actually the guardian of the gate, the gate to the first layer of Hell, and and now she's resides there. She's kind of been cursed there. They suspect it has something to do with the war between dragons and giants, but pretty much she's got a bunch of dragons over there, and the devils have learned the hard way not to mess with her and just leave her alone. And, who knows what happens if that curse is ever lifted and she's able to leave her lair of hell.
So next we go into Dispater. This is the cosmos as a grand scheme. He who knows its rules the best shall win the prize. So this is the arms dealer. So this is the guy where if you want something, he's the one that's going to be able to get it for you. And, it says, using some of the great number of secret techniques Dispater has unearthed over his lifetime, the foundries of Dis produce deadly armaments that help to stem the abyssal tide. So not only can he get it, but he makes stuff. And he is very paranoid about everything. So he's usually kept away from everything just for his own protection because he doesn't want anyone to mess with him.
So there's some cool tidbits. One, like if you need to introduce an artifact or a powerful magic item or weapon into your game, Dissipator could be the one to bring it. Like you might have to go to him to find it. You might have to complete a quest for him. So you could definitely use him in that regards. Also, he's a very specific way that he likes to send his messages. He etches them on the backs of imps, and then he makes them wear this special vest.
He brands it into the imps.
Well, yeah, he brands it into their backs, makes them wear a special vest, and it's laced up the front, but those laces run through its heart. So if anyone but the individual is met for tries to unlace it, that shreds their heart, destroying the imp as well as the message.
The imp is just disintegrated, unable to see the message. So I thought that section was pretty darn awesome. So part of me now wants to, every so often have an imp be seen doing something with this vest on.
So so if you need something having to do with secrets or weapons, then this is your guy.
This is the guy. So you've got the greatest game, as his little section there, and here he's created a suit of armor that is supposedly impenetrable. It's supposed to protect him from basically all spells, and he's used all of the secrets that he's gathered over his lifetime, being this devil of secrets to forge this, and he's unwilling to make it for anybody else. So nobody knows exactly what all properties this thing has.
Super paranoid. Next, that brings us to the next layer, and that is ruled by Mammon. The count of my queen is more reliable than any roster of mortal hearts or immortal souls. Mammon. So he's got sections like everything has a price, financier of the hells, a shabby kingdom, and like I kind of summed this stuff up in my notes too, like merchant, miser, slumlord of hell, and loan shark to the devils is basically Mammon. He cares more about coin. He's the wealthiest of all the devils.
He is the potentially wealthiest being in the multiverse. Is kind of what it boils down to. His realm is a wasteland and a swamp, and he only puts forth enough coin to barely maintain at best. Everything he does is weighed heavily on how much is this going to profit me, and like it's heavily weighed out on those scales, and if it does not tip in his favor, then the answer is going to be absolutely 100% no.
Yeah, he doesn't repair things, that's for sure. Everything is falling apart. So the next section we have is really unique because it's actually not one ruler, but they have a co-ruler, and that is for Feinde and Belial.
This is a paladin. How exquisite. Sit, please, rest. Tell me about the god that would send such a bright soul on so long a dark journey. And that's by, Feinde. So these two are, kind of a weird dichotomy. It says they're listed or seen as mother and son, daughter and father, wife and husband, or ruler and consort. But like none of them can capture the paradoxical nature of their partnership because they're always at odds. They are against each other, but yet they both serve in this grand scheme.
And they pull together when need be. So it's just a strange relationship. And we have for our subheaders, our fiery realm of dark delights, justice in all its forms, soul searching. So one of them really focuses on deception and being charismatic and really luring people, and that is Feinde. And Belial basically leaves her to the collecting of souls, and he's more like the administrator.
So next we move on to Vistas.
One quick thing, this is also the layer of hell where you're going to find basically the Las Vegas of hell. So that could be an adventure in itself. There's casinos, there's brothels, there's gambling, there's taverns. So this could be a fun, sort of fun adventure where your players could have a good time and might lose their soul.
So it says, in contrast to the stiff regimentation of the rest of the Nine Hells, the laws that govern the Abriamach allow the place to operate as a carnival in which any wanton desire can be fulfilled. So, yeah. As you said, Las Vegas on steroids for sure.
Next we have Vistas.
Though ice might hold my body in place, it has done nothing to contain my ambition. So this Devil Lord is literally, entombed in ice, as punishment, and he's just kind of stuck there, but yet he still is able to enact his power.
And so we've got headings like a contested realm and a frozen wasteland. There's also rumors that this was actually a prime material plane for someplace else that was kind of shifted here in a deal. Vistas was part of a war over Stygia, which is the realm with Geryon previously, and for his failings or whatever, Asmodeus imprisoned him in ice for eternity, where he really only has time to look over and look after collecting souls and making his quota for the devils. And all the archdevils do have that. They have a quota they have to meet. It's different for each one, but harvesting souls of mortals is definitely a big part of their job.
Yeah. As part of Levistus' punishment, Asmodeus decreed that he must offer escape and safety to the desperate, especially those that fear for their lives. A criminal might entreat Levistus on the eve of his execution, for instance, agreeing to exchange his soul for a boon that enables him to escape to safety. So, you could have these cool moments where, all right, somebody has escaped, from prison by unknown means, and a party could be hired to track him down, and all of this could be the machinations of, okay, yeah, I'll let you free, but then tell somebody else that you've escaped 5 minutes later, and now the criminal's being hunted so that he can be still properly killed and the soul go to Vistas.
So the next layer we have Galicia. And of course I love my father. Without him, whom would I have to strive against?
So Galicia is Asmodeus' daughter. And, while, she is a daughter, she loves him, it's still this is still a rival because I'm still a devil. I still want to, get that ambition and that drive.
I would use the term love very lousely in this instance. So we have sections like prison and torture chamber, singular iconoclast, coin legions, and ironic sphere of influence. Now, the kind of the thing is, she didn't always have her own layer. She had it because she basically enacted a scheme where she ripped off all the other devils and bought a bunch of souls with counterfeited coin, but she found a loophole in the laws which let her get away with it. She also formed this criminal organization, essentially a thieves guild in hell. And a big part of that was also, that Queen Legions. Like, she came up with her, much like the Dread Legions, she kind of modeled that and made her own legions. And for this, she was kind of punished and rewarded at the same time by Asmodeus with her own layer of hell. This is the prison layer. And if you ever wanted to run a heist game in hell, this is a good place to do it because, they have to break somebody out.
And this is going to be, no easy feat to get into, because I can only imagine in a place in the hells, magic is going to be pretty common. So your jail has got to be pretty stout to make sure that the people aren't getting out.
So, the next place we're going to go is Beelzebul.
Through sufficient penance and grace, even the lowliest can redeem themselves. I am not a living testament to the fact. Beelzebub.
So here we have sections of Maze of Information, the Price of Redemption, and the Price of Redemption. This one is interesting because he actually planned and failed a coup against Asmodeus. And one of the punishments was he was turned into this horrific slug creature, and he spent a very long time there because it was retroactive. So anytime he tells a lie to a devil,
he turns into a slug for a year.
Yes.
But as you said, it was retroactive. So every lie he had ever told, up to that point, was compounded, it was added, and he spent a long time as this useless slug. And, he has returned to his full humanoid, devil form. And since then, he has, strived that he won't tell any more lies to devils.
But that doesn't affect everyone else.
Yeah. You pesky mortals are fine. I can love the other one.
And the other thing is, no one knows the laws of hell better than Beelzebub. So, even being a devil, treating with him is probably very dangerous as well, still. He also has all the information that's ever been recorded in hell as well. So again, we talked about a heist game, right? Well, this is another great place. Maybe you need a copy of a contract, or you want to steal someone's contract, some other piece of information you need for your game. Well, this is the only place to get it, and this is the only guy that has it. So that would make for a great heist game.
Yeah, so like there's lots of stuff you can do with that. Mephistopheles, there are a few problems that cannot be solved through the application of overwhelming arcane firepower.
This guy is the Archmage of Hell. Like, if you think Mordenkainen's powerful, you think Elementor's powerful. Like, there's only one like D&D wizard I would kind of like stack up against this guy, and it's maybe Fizzban, but he doesn't count because he's really Paladin.
So like this is what you're gonna have to go up against, and you have your subheadings as experiments in the unknown, keeper of arcane souls, the storehouses of lore. So like these things just scream how much arcane might that this guy has to offer. Keepers of the arcane souls pretty much says, oh well, if you're a magic wielding person that ties yourself to him, here's where he's gonna bring you in.
Yeah, and there's people that are more than willing to become his apprentice. Unfortunately, they don't read the fine print, and it's not as a great deal as you think. Many other powerful beings sneak in his realm just to kind of watch and observe his experiments, hopefully unnoticed. It's a very dangerous proposition. But yeah, anything having to do with magic or magic secrets, you could plan an adventure just around his lair of hell and him, which would be pretty intense.
Absolutely.
So next we get into the rank and file, and this actually goes into the order of the devils, right? They actually have a rank system, 1 through 13, and they're listed. So it's there for your convenience. You have lowest of the low, lesser devils, greater devils, and of course the archdevils. And then it talks about how the devils have rules for everything. They're creatures of pure law and evil. There's also we also get into the 3 paths of power: souls, glory, and treachery. So souls is basically, that's what we talked about earlier, the fact that all the archdevils have quotas that they have to meet, right? Mm-hmm. And let's face it, that means every devil has a quota to meet, because you know the saying, what rolls downhill, right? And if you don't think you don't have problems if you're a devil under Mammon and he's coming close to not making his quota, I would not want to be in those ranks. And that goes for all the different archdevils. You're just going to get abused and used for that. Glory is another one, and that is basically the blood war. Making kills and destroying powerful enemies in the blood war is another way to gain prestige and power as a demon.
And of course, treachery. Just as the law has complex rules for the promotion of devils under normal circumstances, it also includes contingencies for how to fill a sudden vacancy in the upper ranks. Vaulting into the position formerly occupied by one superior is the fastest means of advancement available to a devil.
So next we go into our Diabolical Colts, and we're not going to read through all of them, but each one of the archdevils has their own cult. Except for Asmodeus, in a sense. Like, he got his own cult, but then all the other cults are, in essence, supposed to pay homage to him. And if you do that, you could actually gain the benefits from being in another cult, and also the cult of Asmodeus, if he deems you worthy. So they're going to do different things, like, there might be, there's different signature spells, there's special abilities. I think some of them even give stat adjustments. And this is just a way that you can make your cultists a little bit more interesting, and make them different from each other. It also goes in to say what typical cultists might be, instead of just using the 2 different cultist NPC entries.
Yeah, for instance, the cult of Kerkern says bandit, bandit captain, berserker, cult fanatic, cultist, gladiator, thug, tribal warrior, and veterans. And then it gives the abilities that you might be able to apply to them. So you could take all of those NPC set of statistics, add these features to it, and now you have an array of challenge ratings and characters that you can put out there that are vastly different from the NPCs that are listed. And you've got an array of, like I said, challenge ratings to be able to use against your party.
Then there's also Infernal Cambions. Cambions is in the monster manual, and they're all kind of the same, but it goes on to say a little bit, here's a way to switch them up. You can change out signature spells from the different cults and add them to a Cambion to kind of flavor them after a specific sire. You could also there's also special traits that they get as well, so it's going to make them a little bit different. And then from there we get into Tiefling sub races.
Yeah, so like the special traits are if you have a cambion of Zariel and Geryon, you can switch out the Fiendish Charm for Fury of the Nine. You get 8 different sub races under Tieflings, because the ninth is Asmodeus, and his is like, oh, just use the usual one.
That's the default.
That's the default. And they all have a different set of stat adjustments and spells that they have access to. Getting a cantrip at first, a first level spell at third, and a second level spell once they reach fifth.
Right, and this is stuff we've seen in Unearthed Arcana, so this stuff isn't particularly new. Zariel is the most interesting in my opinion because you get that bonus to strength and charisma.
Mm-hmm.
So with that strength with strength and charisma, we're talking about these are great for making paladins out of your tiefling. You get both the stats you need, whether you want to be a paladin of conquest or if you want to play against type, you go that way as well.
And you'd wind up, having that, spells that work out well for you. Thaumaturgy at first level is not all that useful, but you get Searing Smite at third level, and you get Branding Smite at fifth level. So getting some extra smites as a paladin, always a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Then that brings us to Devil customization tables, and that gives us Devil honorifics. So these are just titles that you can add to them. You get personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, much like you've seen throughout, the Player's Handbook, and Xanathar's Guide added a bunch of those. So it's just ways that you can spice up your devils in the game and make them a little more interesting.
So stay tuned. We'll be doing demons, in the weeks to come. So let us know what you think of Mordenkainen's Tome foes. Don't forget to check the contest. Jump down in the comments below to let us know what you think. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Check out Nerdarchy, the store, over on the website.
So until next time, stay nerdy.